Welcome to Route 66. It's Greg Burdine, and we've been looking through the Bible. We're near the middle of the Bible. We're in the book of Job today, Job 8 through 11. We have 4 chapters, and the readings are good. There's some conversations going between Job and his 3 friends, and they're talking about suffering and God's justice. And there's a little bit of heated words that come from time to time, but it just reminds us some pretty big lessons. So you got some things. Job is going to talk. Bildad's going to talk, his friend, and Job is going to talk, and then another friend named Zophar is going to talk. So let me give you a little summary of what's going to be you're going to be reading. In chapter 8, Bildad emphasizes that God is just. God never does wrong, and he suggests that maybe the reason why all of Job's children died was because of their sin. He insists that if Job were pure, God would restore him. And so, since God never does wrong, and suffering is always, and hurt is always because of sin, Job must have done something wrong. He appeals to tradition, the history. He argues that God always rewards the righteous, and God always just punishes the wicked, so Job must have done wrong. Well, chapter 9, Job responds, and he said, who can stand before God? God is just, God is powerful, but how can a mortal try to make himself right with God? Job feels powerless. He feels unheard. He knows he's innocent, but he longs for a mediator who will bridge the gap between him, a mortal, and God, the immortal. And we know who that is. That's actually is Jesus Christ. And then in Job chapter 10, Job cries out to God. He doesn't talk to Bildad. He talks to God. Why was I born? He directly questions God, expressing confusion, hurt. He feels targeted. He wonders why God created him only to crush him and hurt him. Why did God allow all these good things to happen if you're going to just hurt me some more? His words are revealing deep emotional and spiritual suffering. And then when he's finished, a friend Zophar says, Job, you deserve worse. He accuses Job of talking too much, of being arrogant by claiming to be innocent. He says that Job's punishment is actually less than he deserves, urges him to repent. Zophar presents a very simplistic view. If Job repents, everything will be okay. But Job hasn't done anything wrong to deserve that, so there's nothing to repent from. So here's some lessons that we can learn from this, as well as many of the others, but specifically this. Simplistic theology can be spiritually harmful. Bildad and Zophar both suffer from the idea that suffering is always a cause of sin. They have a rigid view of God's justice and leave no room for mercy or for mystery or for grace. You see, because not all suffering is a punishment. Now, all suffering is ultimately due to sin. If there wasn't sin, there wouldn't be any hurts and pains and suffering and heartaches. But it's not all directly related to that. So be careful of being very simplistic in your teaching, in your understanding, in your biblical knowledge. The second thing is it's possible to say true things, but in the wrong spirit. What these guys were saying wasn't necessarily wrong. It just didn't apply to Job. God does punish sin. God does reward the righteous. Bad things do happen to bad people. Good things do happen to good people. A lot of what they said was absolutely the truth, but they lacked compassion, they lacked humility, and they lacked timing. They didn't apply it right. Never turn truth into a weapon. So be careful of saying the right thing, but in the wrong spirit. Always have love. Speak the truth in love, the Apostle Paul said. And another lesson, even the righteous can question God. You see, Job's questions are intense. They're even bordering the line of being disrespectful, but they're part of his honest walk with God. Real faith can wrestle with God and without rejecting him. If you've ever met a couple or some good friends, some really close friends, they can have some deep, deep disagreements and conversations and questions. And it's because of their deep love and friendship that they can have those. And so sometimes we can be honest with God and question God without rejecting him. So be careful when you get into those environments, but know this, God's big enough to handle any question you might have. God bless you and your reading. We'll pick it back